Now, being able to pronounce the Dungeon of Naheulbeuk, the Amulet of Chaos, isn't the only hard part of the game for me. Now, it's a humoristic turn-based RPG with memorable characters and some great voice acting. Now, the expansive bestiary hides some really dangerous monsters, so in order to give you the best start I can, I want to welcome you to the Indie Game Guides and offer you my beginner tips for the Dungeon of Naheulbeuk, the Amulet of Chaos. Now, if you've already started playing, you probably realized early on that both your characters as the enemies miss a lot of attacks. Now, the entire hit chance of your attacks is basically built upon a stat called precision. Now, this seems probably like the most obvious thing, but in this video I will be constantly talking about it because mastering how precision works makes mastering this game a lot easier. Now, it will basically increase your damage output and reduce the damage you can receive. So now that you know that precision is important, let's talk about how we can use it to our benefit. Let's talk about building your party members. Now, obviously we can improve them quite a bit through gear, which offers all kinds of stats. But most importantly, you guessed it, precision. But you can also improve it when they level up. Now, after each encounter, each party member will get experience. When they've collected enough, they will level up. Now, each will get about 2 ability points that you can assign in either agility, strength, constitution, intelligence, courage, or charisma. Now, all these attributes affect certain characters differently, but there are 2 that stand out for me. Now, the first one being courage, as it determines when the character will be able to act during the encounter, giving you the chance to quickly take control of the situation. But the one that reigns supreme is agility in my opinion. Now, it not only increases your hit chances by giving you more precision, but it will also increase your dodge chances, reducing the chance you get hit. Now, for most characters, agility should be the priority, but for certain characters like the priestess or the minstrel, you will maybe rather use intelligence and charisma, as these attributes work differently for them. Just be sure to check out the tooltip when assigning these points. We also need to talk about the active and passive skills you can get when the party member levels up. Now, there aren't any bad ones, and there are of course those that give extra precision, damage and dodge to your characters, but there are also some other useful ones that actually place the status effects on enemies by using certain attacks. Now, for example, there are different types of status effects like burning or poisoning, which will damage the character over time, scared that will make them run away, or slash tendons that will reduce their movement speed. Now, personally, I preferred status effects where the enemy is stunned, knocked down, immobilized, or frozen. Not only will he be out of commission for a turn, but all your characters will get an increase in precision against that enemy. Now, in addition, I do think it's in your best interest to give as many characters as you can a way to heal or stabilize themselves and their party members, because that way you can quickly save your troops and get them quicker back into the fight. Anyone who has ever played a turn-based game like this one will know that taking cover behind a wall or an object is a great idea, because if the enemies try to hit you with a spell or an arrow, their precision will take a negative 25% penalty. Full cover will even give your enemies a 50% penalty to their precision. But also be very watchful on which objects are being used as cover. Now, there are often destructible objects or even explosive crates, which you can actually just basically destroy a piece of cover and suddenly the enemy will find himself out in the open, giving you the chance to target him for an attack without a penalty to your aim. Let's talk a little bit more about positioning your troops. Now, first off, we have the attacks of opportunity mechanic. Now, the game is basically a giant grid of tiles. Now, each character controls the 3 tiles in front of them. Now, if an enemy leaves these 3 tiles, they will get one attack of opportunity against them. Now, they do a little bit less damage than a regular attack, about 75%, but it's still worth it. So if you surround an enemy with 3 melee fighters, the enemy will get 3 attacks of opportunity against him when he leaves. A character's orientation is chosen after every move and an essential component of combat. Now, you want to avoid having your party members look away from an enemy, and if an enemy shoots you from the side, he will get a flanked bonus, which increases the precision and damage output from that enemy by 5%. If he attacks you in the back, both are increased by 10%. Now, orientation is also quite important for certain abilities. For example, the thief can only use his sneaky strike when behind an enemy. As we just talked about orientation, let's quickly go over the support mechanic. When performing a melee attack, if you have any allies oriented towards your target, they will give you their support. Now for every supporting ally, you will get a base of 5% bonus to precision. The higher the charisma of the character performing the attack, the higher the bonus will be for each ally. And the best part is that support won't consume any kind of action points. But on a side note, allies who are stunned, unconscious, immobilized, frozen, knocked over, or in overwatch or defensive stand won't be able to give you their support. Before we go on to the next tip, I want to quickly mention that you can always hit me up on Twitter or join our Discord. There you can chat with me and some other indie game enthusiasts. And if you want to have a vote on which indie game gets featured next, be sure to subscribe, because we often organize open questions and do polls to decide which game gets a series of guides next. Now with that out of the way, let's talk about a little thing called Vigilance. If you're not attacking a specific enemy for whatever reason, or just want to limit the movement options of your enemy, use Vigilance. Now this Vigilance is kind of similar to Overwatch if you've played XCOM before. Now what it basically comes down to is, depending on the orientation of your character, he will shoot any enemy which enters that area that he is watching. Now if an enemy passes by before the next turn of your character is up, he will shoot him. If your character didn't use all his action points or any action points before you activate Vigilance, he will shoot the first two enemies who entered that specific area before his turn is up. Now a big side note, not all NPCs can enter Vigilance if they do not have a ranged weapon. So be sure to give every party member one, because that way when you're facing overwhelming numbers, you can just take cover and just destroy whoever comes up close.
Flexing aside, can you do anything with those muscles?
Let's talk about how we avoid getting hit by Vigilance and other dangers. Now if you press the Alt key on your keyboard, you will see all kinds of things, including any active Vigilance zones. Now you know where you shouldn't place a foot down. Now if you hold on to the Control key, you can place waypoints down that the character will pass when moving to his destination. That way you can easily avoid the Vigilance zones. But if you're already in one of those active Vigilance zones, or you just find yourself surrounded by enemies, have the party member enter defensive stance. Now it will decrease the precision of all attacks towards that character by 10%, increasing his protection stat and make him immune to critical hits. The biggest downpoint to using the defensive stance is that your character cannot perform any opportunity attacks. Now if you don't want to be on the defensive while in a Vigilance zone, you can also deactivate the Vigilance zones by moving another party member next to the enemy or hitting him with any type of ranged attack.
The elf leveled up.
Now this game isn't just combat encounters, of course. Now it's also all about collecting gear, weapons and other loot. Now check your environment for lootable objects by holding down the tab key. Be sure to unlock the 2 passive skills for the ogre that will let him breach through doors and walls for secret treasure. Let's talk about taking care of your party members. Now weakness is an additional status that you should really keep an eye out for. Now at 100% of health, your party members are at their best and suffer no penalties. But if they have less than 50%, they will also have reduced precision and resistances. At 25% and 10%, they decrease even more. Now most characters like the Barbarian and the Orc Berserkers become stronger as they grow weaker with the right skill points. But for most characters, well, you just really need to keep them out of harm's way. If one character loses all his health, he will drop unconscious. Now if you want to see him return to the fight, one of his allies will need to heal him. But if they can't reach him in time within 3 turns, the character will leave combat and you won't be able to use him anymore for this fight. Afterwards, you will find him being injured, but you can heal that by either using a bandage or a first aid kit, or just by resting at the tavern. Okay, so now we know what happens if they lose health, but how can we regain it? Now if a party member is hurt, you can heal him in multiple ways, either by using a healing spell from another character like for example the Wizardess or the Priestess, or they can heal themselves with a healing potion from their belt, at least if you don't forget to equip it prior to battle. Now I personally kept forgetting, but I found hidden away in the settings the option to automatically restock the healing potions in the belt of each character as long as you have sufficient stock in your inventory. Having a character miss an attack even with a high success rate, or just rolling a critical failure, or even falling unconscious is not fun. But there is a silver lining. Now for every unlucky event or failure, the randomia gauge will fill up. Now when this gauge is completely full, you can use one of the 4 abilities. You can use the first one 4 times, you can use the second one 2 times, and so on. But these abilities are a really great way to turn the tide of battle, but just don't forget you don't always need to use them straight away. They won't deplete between encounters, so you can always save it for the next one. And those were all my basic beginner tips I could come up with for the Dungeon of Naheulbeuk Amulet of Chaos. Now it's quickly becoming one of my current favorite turn-based games because of the great humor, voice acting, and cartoony art style don't hurt either. Now if you think I missed something or you just want to share one of your own tips, please share them in the comments down below and you might help some people out. If you found this guide useful, be sure to give the video a thumbs up so other people can find it too. And if you like this type of video, well, I publish at least 3 of these every week, so be sure to subscribe. I'd love to get your input in one of our open questions and polls in the community page. I want to thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next one.